Hey, Trance family, Brandon Beatty Trance back with the next video in our series where we've been putting together this uplifting trance track, something modern for 2025. This one's called Above the Stars. It's been coming along pretty nicely. So far, what I've been working on since the last video is I've turned to the drop and the buildup, and I've decided to add an extra two groups of 8 bars here, so a total of 16 bars that I'm going to build up before we drop. And these are just little tricks. I briefly mentioned some of this stuff in the longer form version, especially like adding four, just an extra 4 count before some stuff comes in, and that just kind of keeps the music a little interesting and breaks up the monotony of always having a loop. So knowing how to put in literally an extra bar of 4 is a way to make your music interesting. And knowing how to sort of do that in a longer form by just inserting a build-up. So it was sort of like I had a middle and it literally could have just went right into the drop. But I was like, hold on, let's just extend it and use that extension of time to build the music up before the drop, just in a more interesting way. But anyway, enough yapping. Let's get to the changes. Okay, so I'm going to start the music, I guess, sort of at the piano line, so that because that's where we sort of left off last time, and we'll let it play through the little build up and stuff that I have and get to the full part, and then we'll talk about the next steps. So you guys get the idea at this point. So we really hammered home the build up, and I was actually getting some ideas while we were listening to this. I think I want this to sort of like keep repeating, something like that, where it just keeps glitching. So let's see what that sounds like if we put it in there. Okay, guys, so I spent a little time to get that glitching effect that I wanted to happen during the build-up. So I'm going to play it back so you can see how what I did to accomplish that without overdoing it, because initially I had the idea I wanted this to just kind of keep pulsing, but then I was like, it's just too much. So by cutting it down and having it do it less is more sometimes. So this actually came out nicely. Yeah, I didn't really need to. Again, guys, less is more. And this is where I pare back some of these effects. So this snare drum actually keeps going back, but I didn't need it to go all, like, I didn't need the full sample, because if you listen carefully here, it's this little bit of silence that I was able to put into the track that gives it sort of, again, it's like that effect of when the music all of a sudden comes back in. And so we need the contrast between loud and quiet, because if the music's loud all the time, it'll never feel loud when it's actually supposed to feel loud. So by going from quiet to loud, it really feels loud. And then one little trick we can do to sort of push that concept even further is I actually have a automation lane on my master bus here, and I automate the master volume just by 1 decibel. So in the beginning of the track, I'll sort of have it be at and I forgot to actually go through. I didn't know this was in the template by accident. But in the beginning of the track, I will have the volume start at about 0. Okay. And then in sections like, let's bring this down. Let's go to the kick here. So when we get back to where the sub bass actually comes in, I actually bring the volume down by about 1 decibel by this point. So the track starts loud, but then at the point where it's building up before the sub comes in is sort of when we're going to do like a volume dip. So we're going to go from 0 to 1 decibel here, and let's just hear what that sounds like. Now, the purpose of doing this is so that when we get to the drop, we're going to actually have it all of a sudden jump back in by about 1 decibel. And it's really going to feel loud in the drop. And one piece of advice I can give you guys is when it comes to mastering, the way that I can describe mastering is it's like putting a magnifying lens over your mix, and it's enhancing your mix. And so what that means is that small things you do in your mix will actually magnify at the mastering stage. And so it might be hard to understand that at first because you're not going to have an ear for it, because when I did my first mix, mastering to me seemed like this magical thing. I was like, it's like, what's going on? Like, how did the music sound so different? And what I noticed was the mastering engineer would say, hey, can you bring this down 1 decibel? And I'm thinking to myself, man, this guy's so picky. I can't believe he's telling me to bring the cymbal down 1 decibel. What I did, and the difference in the master, it was almost like I brought the cymbal down like 10 decibels. And that's what you need to understand. So small movements. I know it's tempting. Like, I know you guys might want to drag these points down and have dramatic movements in the music. But when we get to the mastering stage and we magnify those movements, it could actually be too much. So small movements is enough. So this 1 decibel drop and then back to increase in the music is actually enough to make the whole track feel really loud, especially when we get back to that mastering stage. So that's working on the drop and breakdown and putting a build up in the music. And what else do we talk about? I really, at this point, start considering stacking the super saws. And so that's what I started doing. I got a couple different saw leads that I like. I spent some time automating the filters in them just to get the lead and everything together. And the other thing we have is the octave lead, and this is literally the super saw melody, just an octave higher, and we took out the octave jumping notes at the bottom just so that we only have the melody part, because we only want to reinforce the melody with this layer. And you can hear straight away that there's just a lot more energy in the lead with that octave. So here's with it, and that's without. So once we start stacking those saws together, that's how we get a really nice, powerful, thick lead. And we go through each saw sound and I roll off some of the lows. And then I have all the effects turned off on each synthesizer. It's always good to double check. I turn the delay, turn the reverb off, and we send everything to its own delay. See what that sounds like. Yeah, it sounds massive. All right, guys. So, hey, thanks for hanging out with me today. So we did a lot today. We really focused on the build up, on the sort of break where the super saw comes in and everything like that. Put a nice build up and like real intense build up in there before the music comes back, just to really make this like a sort of what kind of track would you call this? This is almost like, it's sort of an old school trance anthem type of track. I think that's what I'm really going for, but more modern and something that would potentially get signed today. All right, so the next episode, we're going to focus on building up the arrangement still. We have the drop, but we don't have the recap. And so if you guys don't know, trance typically follows an A-B-A pattern or structure, which means that there's a sort of a beginning part which sounds distinct, and then there's a distinct middle. But the key with trance is that we need to bring back the beginning, which means that's the ABA format. And by bringing back the beginning, we do a recap. And recap really means like we're summarizing the idea. And through that, it just gives our brains a conclusion of, hey, this is a complete idea. Otherwise, the music could just keep going, right, forever. So just like a good movie, a good movie has a summary, it has a conclusion. The music needs a conclusion. And so we're going to bring back the beginning, and we're going to show you how I transition from this middle part back to the beginning. And we're going to start breaking the track down. So next time, we're going to really focus on arrangement, getting the rest of the arrangement out, and building the rest of the track. And then after that, we'll talk about mixing and then the final touches on the track. Again, at some point, I need to hash out these vocal parts and see where the track is missing. If you guys notice that I'm missing anything, or there's things I could improve, or you have ideas, let me know what you think about this track. So thank you guys for hanging around and being on this little journey with me as I build this track. And see you guys on the next video.